everybody. This is Love from Above with your sibling spirit guides. I'm Maureen, and this is my brother.
Hey Maureen, hey everyone, this is Brian.
Gosh, we're so happy to be here. If you can believe it, on this podcast, we share channelings we receive from star beings, ascended masters, mythical beings who really exist, and occasionally our ancestors. And today's topic is all about communication, the language of nature, ancient wisdom, and telepathy. Oh my gosh, Brian, where should we begin?
Yeah, communication is big. So the first one comes from November 20th and is from the Watchers. And they said, one moment we bring forth a group of sentient beings who can speak now. There is much for us to say. We are likened to the good people who live in your remote regions of your planet. Our connections to the natural world is our primary energetic source. Just as you need light, love, and food, we need to be connected to the earthly plane in ways that you do not. We urge that you, at the most efficient time, to connect with us in a place of natural beauty. There is abundant resources available to insert your hand within the sand, the waves, the air. Uh, all that all shall suffice to gravitate the pull towards the centrifugal force of this lovely planet. So let me stop there. Um, it's first about connecting. We've heard this before about connecting with nature, but it's interesting how that is their source of their energies connecting with nature.
Yeah, but really, food is our way of one way that we connect with nature. I mean, you think about, food is connected to the earth, and we're
Right.
taking energy from food, and that's what's fueling our bodies. But what I found interesting about this was they were saying, so we know like to connect to the earth because, oh my gosh, people, I mean, we have been reprimanded, encouraged about, really spending 10 minutes a day. That's all that's required, but 10 minutes a day and going out and connecting to the planet. But I found it interesting that they talk like just waving your hands in the air. Like that's something I wouldn't have thought of. Would you have?
No, yeah, I thought it had to be like touching the ground to really absorb the energy from Mother Earth. So I didn't, yeah, I really wasn't aware of that either. The air was new to me, but good to know.
Yeah. So I'll continue. They said we liken ourselves to messengers. We carry forth the messages that this planet broadcasts, but many ignore. The winds, the trees, the waves, the birds all speak in a united chorus. Okay, I got to read that one again. The winds, the trees, the waves, the birds all speak in a united chorus. Only humans are oblivious to this natural language. You marvel at your original peoples who can predict strange phenomenon. It is nothing more than easily reading the signs that are before them. Wow. So just imagine that. Like everyone else is communicating in the same language and we're not.
Yeah, we're oblivious to this whole thing. You can see that from, you know, um, Indians that were so in tune with what's going on in nature. So it is really interesting, though. I wish they told us more about that, but yeah, it's good to know.
When I think of, so when I was in Australia, the artwork of the original people of Australia is just, oh my gosh, the energy of their artwork really captivated me. And I was at one art gallery of this art, and the gallery owner was telling me that he said a huge number of the original people are imprisoned in Australia, and he actually first connected with them. He was working in the prisons, and he said, you wouldn't believe this stuff that they can do. He said, I actually saw somebody cut off their hand at the wrist, and then it just regrew. he said, I swear to you, I saw that like in front of myself, you know. So you put a handcuff on them, boom, you know, like he said you would not believe the stuff that they're able to do. So yeah, it's just evidence of magic on this planet, you know?
Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, yeah, so the next one is from recently, December 28th. It was around um wise messages, and who doesn't want to get a wise message? This is started with the Watchers, and then it says they we bring forth with us another. You may remember him as a glorious being from your past. He comes forth now with wise messages to utilize in this experience on these inward planes. And they said, hello. I am most pleased to return to utilize this ultimate source to broadcast my loving messages. When I lived, we used oracles to receive messages. The oracle's words were binding. We believed wholly in the manner of receiving this information, perhaps too much so, but we're grateful for the external wisdom to enter into our lowly status. For at the time in Earth, there was much warring between parties, which prevented the accumulation of comfortable circumstances for most who lived on this planet. Um, so before it goes on, thought that's interesting, the use of oracles, and I know in Greek and Roman times and stuff, there was people that different people that were sought on for wisdom, and you probably know more about this than I do. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the big one that is so amazing. So, if you remember when the Dalai Lama was living in Tibet and he was under total Chinese, well, you know how the Chinese feel about the Dalai Lama. And he was, totally surrounded by Chinese soldiers. And there was also a cordon of Tibetan people who were surrounding because they were very concerned about the Dalai Lama's life. So the whole Potala Palace was just surrounded, and they used an oracle, and the oracle told the Dalai Lama to leave on this particular night, which sounded crazy. I mean, because it was like, just imagine leaving someplace that's totally cordoned off and totally surrounded by enemy forces. But he listened to, of course, he followed the oracle's advice, and like miraculously, he walked out of the Potala Palace. You know, he walked
Yeah.
out and he walked over to India, which was just like how that happened was truly a miracle. Um, and I'm reading a book about angels, and they were talking about an angel who helped Saint Peter escape from Herod the Great, and it was kind of like the same thing. The angel came to him and said, you can leave at this time, and just he basically walked out of prison. And so, yeah, I mean, the Dalai Lama uses an oracle to connect and receive messages too.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will go on. They begin to talk about how does one find comfort? This may seem like a question unworthy of examination. However, the truth is that the ultimate query, which, yeah, I mean, I would think of how you find comfort as the ultimate query. For they said, how you find comfort is nestled into how you create your divine life stream. It's only when we're truly comfortable that we can relax and allow life to flow in its correct formations. For some, this may be to enter in trance with their entertainment devices. For others, it may be a vigorous, energetic session in your beautiful outdoor arenas. Whatever the area, it is important to take note, for this is the way in which you connect to your divine life spark. This can be magnified with practice and continual use, which of course should always be recommended. So, yeah, Brian, I have to really think about this. I honestly don't know what would be the number one way that I feel comfort. Do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So, I mean, there's certain things that I do like to do, like working out, but I don't know if that's comfort. Um, so yeah, it's something that I have to, that's the only thing I can think of. But, it's also, meditating and doing the things that I do on a regular basis. But I don't know. I think those would be the main things I would say that give me comfort. How about, so you're not sure what that would be
Well,
for
I
you?
think there's a lot of things. I think I really love being in nature. I mean, that is something I really love. And I think I really, and I'm going to go back to this Aura ring. Brian and I both use this ring that measures our stress levels and everything like that. And I can tell the moment that my stress levels start to rise. And the first thing that I always do is, meditate and bring everything down. But I don't know if I could pick one way. I mean, I have to think about that. Um, yeah, I don't know one way that I really find comfort. And they're saying that that is the ultimate query. So I don't know. That'll be homework for me. I'll have to come back to you on that one.
But yeah, good messages, interesting. And so then the final one is going back a few months here, back to August 1st, 2024. And this starts with the Watchers again. They said, we come forward through this portal at this junction, and we are told there are others who wish to go forward and step aside to allow their communication. So again, someone else coming forward. We come forward now and see that there's much to do within this loving abode. We come forward to assuage and magnify the glorious beings within. There are many lessons that can be held in any moment, so many subjects in so little time. We turn our discourse to the subject matter of your books. We find this to be a curious repository of your knowledge. It is interesting that it requires so much thought and effort to compile a book, whether this was a book of old or one in the present time. We ask, wouldn't it be easier just to communicate one's thoughts and broadcast it telepathically to those that are near? But we understand this is considered strange by those who reside in the environment. They doubt and dismiss the intuitive feelings that enter their surrounding world. Um, the beauty of books is that you study is that they encapsulate a series of thoughts that occurred in that moment. In this way, they are an adequate reflection of the historic attitudes of great personages on your beloved planet. There are many books to peruse, both brother and sister are well aware, but we suggest that we offer opportunities for you to explore more than you are currently perusing. There are subject matters that both brother and sister could enjoy and would require little or no effort to utilize. So, we are avid readers. What do you take from what both the I if we could um get this information telepathically, I'm all for it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But
But you know what it reminds me of is like how you get extra sense with somebody. So I spent Christmas with my youngest child, and like how you have that mom sense and that dad sense where you can just kind of like read them without being in their physical space. Do you know what I'm talking about?
right, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, as you say, Brian, I'm all for this with regards to receiving information telepathically. And you and I are working very diligently and hard on volume one of these channelings. And wouldn't it be easier if we could just communicate it with everybody like, telepathically, like, yeah, here it is.
right, right. Well, there's something interesting that actually my daughter put has a friend whose dad was recommended this podcast to me, and it was synchronistic because we just talked about this, but it's called telepathy tapes. And I just listened to the first episode, but it was interesting. So it involves, at least the first episode was telepathic communication. And it was talking about how there's this John Hopkins doctor that discovered there's these non-speaking autistic children and how they have telepathy with their parents and they can read their parents' minds. And they've proven this with with rigorous testing that shows this. So um, that's I thought that was really interesting. So it's out there, and there's people that definitely can do it. There's also this, I don't know, you ever seen, there's a guy I've seen because I do consume a fair amount of football and sports. There's a guy that always goes to different sporting teams, and he's called a mentalist, and he can, do just crazy things where read people's mind. Think of their ATM code, and he can tell them what it is, or he can ask people to think of the first person they kissed, and then he writes down a name and he gets it right. So
Oh.
there's people that definitely can do it, and but it's becoming more and more prevalent, and we'll talk about that in the closing. But it's exciting, I think, as more and more people get these abilities, it's really interesting to me.
Well, I read a book, and I can't even recall what book it was, but it said, and which makes sense, that this is really just a skill that you need to practice. So they said, like, to take a friend and just start practicing. You could get like cards, and just, like those memory cards. You remember that memory bet game where you just like matching cards and just start practicing with each other, because like anything else, it's just a skill that can be practiced. Um, so yeah, and I just think it's another example of how we're shifting to a higher dimension, and more people are becoming, awakening and blossoming and opening up to the true potential, like this guy who's the mentalist, so because we all have our special gifts. I hope as I'm traveling, no one's reading my ATM code.
Yeah. Well, that's what is interesting because on that podcast, they're like saying they have to be really careful what they think. I mean, I guess that's the point. You should, but the child can knows exactly what they're thinking, even though they can't even communicate. So, but oh, so now I know I've referenced that people are probably sick of this, but I finished this book, but there are so many different good quotes in this, and I remember reading this thing about telepathy in there, so I'm putting as part of this closing, I want to share this. It says, you're approaching a turning point in the evolution of your consciousness as a collective. You will know when someone is about to walk into the room a split second before they do, and when that split second gets a little bit longer and little bit longer. So exactly what you're saying. It's something that I think is gonna improve with time. But anyway, it says that this is one of the initial phases of becoming telepathic. Now, in many ways, you are already telepathic, but we were talking about complete telepathy and doing away with speech and writing emails and texts altogether because you will communicate with your energy. And it's an important step in your evolution because sensing energy means that there'll be no more lying. Let's put it another way, that transparency is going to shift you even higher in frequency until you reach a point where you feel completely comfortable with every other human. And that will shift you even further. Being transparent and honest all the time is something that you can start doing now. You can start by doing it with yourself, And when you extend that courtesy out to all other people in your life, you will know that you are evolving as an individual. So you see, you have your personal evolution and the evolution of the human collective, and oftentimes they mirror one another. From Daniel Scranton, The Shift to the Fifth Dimension, Volume 1. What do you think
Yeah.
of that? So that I'm all for doing away with speech, writing emails, text, just everything being uh, telepathic, and that's I think in the fifth dimension is that the eventual where we're gonna all
Yeah,
be
no, and that's actually how we receive these channelings. It's not only the words coming through, it's the emotions. And so, and all these beings that we communicate with, they're not writing stuff down, they're not talking, they're communicating telepathically. And so and if you've ever had a conflict with anyone, it's almost always 100% a miscommunication. So, all those conflicts would just dissipate because you would like really understand the other person. I find it interesting that they say the first thing to do is to like being really transparent with yourself. I started that couple years ago when I started, I love Wayne Dyer and I think I've read all of his books, but he talks about that, like just to make sure that your speech is really precisely correct. So, if your mother called you 3 times, on a day, that you don't exaggerate and say, "Oh my God, my mom called me 10 times today," that you're really accurate with your speech, that's really important. So, I don't know. I mean, again, Brian, I'm just so grateful we're really incarnated like at a cusp of such an important time. I mean, we're supposed to be on the verge of this great golden age. So how great that we get to be a part of this immense transformation, right?
yes, it's I find it very exciting too. So um it just every message we get is just talks about all the great things that are to come and are part of what's to come. So it's great things to look forward to, and great message there about just being true to yourself and honest with yourself and others. So I think that's um, a great message too. So
Well, thank you, brother, for putting this one together, and thank you everybody for listening. And any more thoughts?
no, that should do it. We'll talk next time.
Okay, thank you, everybody.